Today, Donald Trump has confirmed China's military help to Iran. Now, this is massive because up until now, we were only talking about speculations and based on them, Trump had threatened China. But today, this deranged occupant of the White House confirmed that he had written to Chinese President Xi Jinping requesting him to not send any weapons to Iran. Meanwhile, a high-level delegation of Pakistan led by Field Marshal Syed Moner has arrived in Tehran to discuss the possibility of the second round of U.S.-Iran talks. Elsewhere, Iran and the UAE have held phone conversations to improve future relationships. This would be the broad focus of my video today. Also in this video, Iranian girl scripts history as she backs 2 gold medals in the ongoing World Junior Taekwondo Championship in Uzbekistan. So please stay tuned. So the motor-mouth U.S. president once again has had to eat humble pie today. He admitted that China was indeed sending weapons to Iran as he told Fox News about writing a letter to his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. This is important given that he is scheduled to visit China next month. This is what she told Fox News. You've got a major meeting coming up next month with President Xi. I want to get your take on China and how this shift in oil, particularly because of Iran, particularly because of Venezuela, and what you've done, even your comments on Cuba. How does that change the dynamic of this meeting with President Xi? I don't think it does. I mean, he's somebody that needs oil. We don't. He's somebody I get along with very well. He just wrote me a beautiful letter. He wrote you a letter. Yeah, he did. He responded to a letter that I wrote because I had heard that China is giving weapons to, if I mean you're seeing it all over the place, to Iran, that China's giving weapons giving them. Yeah. And I wrote him a letter asking him not to do that. And he wrote me a letter saying that essentially he's not doing that. Now, this spectacular admission comes just days after he publicly told reporters that China would be in trouble if the news of its military alliance with Iran was true. Only yesterday, BBC security correspondent Frank Gardner said that there were discussions in China about using its naval power to safely escort its ships through the Persian Gulf to deal with the U.S. blockade. But China may not need to engage its navy against the U.S. blockade in the Persian Gulf because the U.S. military's threats have so far turned out to be a big joke. Since Monday, when the U.S. Central Command announced the start of the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, as many as 15 ships have defied the American military to successfully pass through this crucial waterway. And according to the BBC, 9 of these ships have been linked to Iran. Yesterday, I told you how 3 Chinese ships had managed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz despite previously being sanctioned by the Americans. You can watch that video here. Among those 15 ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz in the last 48 hours are also some ships who paid a toll to Iran in order to secure a safe passage through this waterway. Why is this important? It's important because Israeli slave Trump had warned that any ships paying a toll to Iran would not be allowed to pass through the Persian Gulf. Now, this is a crushing blow to the so-called supremacy of the U.S. military. Watch this broadcast by Sky News where Suzanne Maloney, the director of Brookings Institute's foreign policy, exposes the Trump administration's short-sightedness on the Strait of Hormuz before deciding to launch an illegal war against Iran. Well, I hope that the U.S. administration will in the future adopt a more holistic approach to thinking through the potential outcomes to conflicts that are being contemplated. It was well known that the Iranians have threatened on innumerable occasions to target the Strait of Hormuz. It's also been well known and well documented that they have retaliated against their neighbors' economic and energy infrastructure at times of intensive pressure on the regime in Tehran. So all of these were predictable outcomes, and what is still, I think, difficult to understand is why and how the Trump administration and the Israelis, as they made the decision to go forward with a regime change existential war with Iran, that they didn't plan for and prepare for the inevitable economic fallout that would follow. Yeah, and the economic fallout, as you say, and also the fact that the Strait of Hormuz could have been used as leverage, which is exactly what the Iranians did in the end. You know there are those who predicted this if the United States went to a war with Iran that the Strait of Hormuz would become an issue. Yes, you know, Iranian politicians and senior figures within the regime have invoked the intent to close the strait almost in ritualistic fashion every time there is rising tension between Washington and Tehran. We've never seen a full closure of the strait. We've never seen a sustained full closure of the strait. And so we are in, to some extent, unprecedented circumstances. But this reaction, This move by the Iranians was absolutely anticipated by anyone who had studied the behavior of the regime, and in certainly all those in the U.S. military who have been engaged in countless preparatory exercises and planning and in strategic documentation in case of any contingency that would require U.S. military action against the regime. So that the failure to prepare for and plan for this outcome is still, I think, baffling. There's more bad news for Trump in the region. Yesterday, Trump's most trusted TV channel, Fox News, said that Iran may try to close down the Bab el-Mandeb Strait if Trump posed difficulties for the Islamic Republic in the Persian Gulf. How true is it that although Saudi Arabia wants us to finish the job, they're not happy with the blockade because they're worried the response is going to be to shut off the Red Sea, where they've rerouted almost all their oil and they're back up to pre-war levels? It's a great question. They're concerned about Bab el-Mandeb, which is the gateway of tears, as it is called in Arabic, to the Red Sea. And this is a focal point because Saudi Arabia previously conducted negotiations with the Houthis and was able to develop a ceasefire between Houthi forces and their forces to keep this critical waterway open. There is concern that in response to the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and Iranian ports that the Iranians could use one of their largest proxies, the Houthis, to try and block the Red Sea. Now, if this does take place, it raises questions about what the response could be and if the Israelis could be more directly involved in responding toward Houthi forces. We do know over the past 2 years both the United States and Israel have conducted airstrikes against the Houthis. Today, Iran issued an official statement threatening to shut down the Bab el-Mandeb if the U.S. didn't end its illegal blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Bab el-Mandeb Strait connects the Red Sea to the wider Indian Ocean. If the Houthis indeed close down this crucial passage, then it has a monumental impact on the Arab country's ability to trade with the wider world. This would have further catastrophic impact on the global economy. Hence, reports of Saudi Arabia making desperate attempts to end the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, even the UAE has begun taking steps to end hostilities with Iran. Today, UAE Vice President Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan held a telephonic conversation with the Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf. Now, this is a quite rare development, as this is the first time both countries have held such high-level talks since the U.S. and Israeli terrorists launched their illegal strikes against Iran. This clearly shows the desperation amongst the Arab countries on the potential pitfalls of the Iranian blockade of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Trump is also facing heat in his own backyard as more and more U.S. lawmakers are speaking out against his foreign policy, which is bereft of any rational or respect for international law. If we allow this as a Congress, this is the new standard. Donald Trump can wage war on Cuba next for 30, 60 days before having to consult Congress. Donald Trump could invade Greenland. These are not hypotheticals. He has said he's going to take Cuba. He said he's going to take Greenland. The standard this Congress, the Republicans in this Congress are saying is the president could attack any country, pledge billions of dollars, have multiple American lives lost, and there be no congressional action whatsoever until 60 days. That would shred the very ideals of the Constitution of the United States of America. It cannot be allowed. But if you're going to ask a simple question, what threshold? It should have been immediately when this president launched a war. It should have been immediately. If not that, then it should have been when American lives started to get lost. If it not that, then it should have been when our jets and planes were shot down. If not that, it should have been after a school of children were bombed and killed. At what point does Congress act? Does it hold an open hearing? Does it prove ability? Does it ask for an accounting? Does it ask and provide checks and balances? We are in this situation not just because of Donald Trump, but because of his congressional enablers that are allowing him day after day to conduct an illegal war costing the American people billions of dollars, American lives, and skyrocketing costs. The whole world is less safe right now because of Donald Trump. The whole world is in economic crisis because of Donald Trump. The whole world is in a state of crisis, and Americans are paying for it. So this group here, we are going to continue this. We are going to demand debates. We're going to use our positions to bring war powers resolution after war powers resolution because the Republicans don't want to talk about this. The Republicans don't want debates on the floor. They clearly don't want to have hearings because they haven't had them. This government, this democracy does not work when an executive out of control isn't checked by Congress. and so I'm grateful for the leader. And then this happened. Trump's deputy J.D. Vance made this spectacular confession at an event organized by Turning Point USA. He was heckled by his own supporters for supporting the genocide in Gaza. He then ended up admitting that Trump was effectively carrying out economic terrorism against the Iranians by launching the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. When it comes to weapons of war, what they have done is engage in this act of economic terrorism against the entire world. They basically threatened any ship that's moving through the streets of Hormuz. Well, as the President of the United States showed, two can play at that game. And if the Iranians are going to try to engage in economic terrorism, we're going to abide by a simple principle that no Iranian ships are getting out either. We know that's a big deal to them. We know that applies additional economic leverage. And again, Brett, the president wants the Iranian people to thrive and succeed. He has had his negotiation team put on the table a serious proposal. The ball is in Iran's court. Do we make progress? Yes. But we're going to find out from the Iranians whether we can make that ultimate bit of progress that gets us to a big deal. It's clear Trump and his minions are feeling the heat and feeling it in the most brutal manner. No wonder he has now sent a high-level Pakistani delegation with a request for a second round of diplomatic talks with Iran. The Pakistani delegation, led by Aim Moner, arrived in Tehran moments ago. This was the moment when Aim Moner and the other members of his delegation were welcomed by Iranian Foreign Minister Sitabasaki. You have to understand that Iran is not in a hurry, but Trump is. The longer this conflict continues, the more bloodbath his country's economy, American economy, is going to face. Let's hope that sanity prevails and this clown finally takes reasonable steps to end the madness that he started to please his war criminal Israeli master Benjamin Netanyahu. Even though the Israeli lobby's mask is off now, this is pro-Israeli lawyer Alan Dashovitz. He wants terrorist Netanyahu to keep fighting while he and other Israeli billionaire Miriam Aden takes care of Trump. The goals of the United States and Israel are different when it comes to Iran. And we see that in Lebanon, where Israel is feeling pressure from the president to tone down its attacks. And the truth is as much as you attack Hamas, Isfahan, Iran, they see they're still around. That's the problem. It's very hard to defeat them. But on the other hand, what other choices do we really have? That's really the dilemma. We have to continue to fight. Hashimo's Leoine. We have to remember that the Jews get shalom only through oaths. And so BB has to continue to fight even if it means confrontation with President Trump. Leave that to Americans. We will take care of President Trump. You know, I met with him over Kanika. Spent a half an hour or so with him in the Oval Office talking about Iran. He was very receptive, and I know that Miriam adds them from time to time. I talk to other members of the administration from time to time. There's a lot of support for Israel within the administration, but it's moderated by the fact that, as you say, America has a slightly different interest. America is cooked for as long as these rogue Israeli agents are not stopped. I will leave you with this beautiful clip of an Iranian girl who won not one, but 2 gold medals last night in the ongoing World Junior Taekwondo Championship in Tashkent. Mind you, these athletes have come here to take part in this championship immediately after facing a brutal onslaught by the American and Israeli terrorists. And yet they have come to us to establish their country's supremacy. This time in the world of sports, watch and admire the courage of this Iranian daughter, Hannah Zailankama. What about my Mano? That's it for me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism.